Welcome back, everyone, to the Project Censored radio show. For this short segment, the second half of today's program, we are going to bring back the Mickey and Eleanor, talk about the news that didn't make the news. And even though this segment could be 4 hours long, we have about 15 minutes. So we are going to run through a bunch of things today. Mickey, thanks for joining me again.
Eleanor, it's always, I can't say it's a pleasure to talk about some of the things we talk about, but it's certainly always great to, I don't even know if commiserate's the right word, but at least shine some light in the dark places of some of the things that are happening and talk about potential solutions, talk about what we can do about it. We've recently been, you and I, framing some of the things we're talking about this year, under the aegis of sort of, is this the best we can do? And today, I think we're going to talk about semantics, linguistics, civil rights. That theme obviously applies. So you had a couple things that you wanted to bring up from some of our allies in the independent press.
Indeed. So this is from our comrades over at PRISM and Media Against Apartheid. You can check them out, PRISM Reports and Media Against Apartheid, on the socials as well as their home pages. But this is an interesting point that was made, which is something that we cover here on Project Censored a lot, framing and the definitions that corporate media give us. So this is about how media bias defines terrorist. So basically, the way that Palestinians, and this is directly related, of course, to the abduction. I don't like using the word arrest because it implies that Mahmoud Khalil did anything wrong. The abduction of Mahmoud Khalil, who's now being held in Louisiana. So Palestinians are labeled the enemy, not just to justify military intervention, but to justify the attack on them here at home. Because, of course, as I like to say, imperialism is a home game. So the way that we are with the world is how we are here at home. And recently on the program, we had Manar Adley, the head of Mint Press News, talk about how this violence against Muslims worldwide has also played out against Muslims here in the U.S., things that she's experienced as a Muslim woman who wears hijab and those kind of things. So it's a two-pronged attack, of course. And so we see, and as PRISM points out, Aklam Mutsaeb, a professor of media studies at Cal State San Bernardino, pointed out that Palestinians are usually constructed as the enemy through a terrorist trope, the brown, brutal fighter, and oppressed Arab women. We have to go save them because we're so feminist. And of course,
and again, we were working in Afghanistan. You thought that was related to 9/11, but it was really the Marines' feminist instincts.
Absolutely. The intention was all good, Mickey. It was all good. And of course, when this is related to like white mass shooters, or very famously like the Oklahoma City bombing, which was done by Timothy McVeigh, a very white man, before they knew it was Timothy McVeigh, there was a lot of talk and even video. CBS aired a video from a Palestinian American gathering in Oklahoma. And when they found out all of a sudden it was Timothy McVeigh, they talked about his mental health.
Yeah. And then they have 10-year-old clips of Osama bin Laden rat-tatting, machine guns. And it's just, they just insert the trope right away. No facts required. They go immediately to racism and claims of terrorism, right? National security, the great blanket that covers all of their atrocities and lies throughout history. I mean, the sad part is, and when you first mentioned that this is what we were going to focus on for our segment today, it just brought back memories of, I've been teaching courses about the so-called war on terrorism for 20 years. And all of these things that are coming up, including definitions of terrorism, these are the kind of things that were going on in the George W. Bush years that really acted to normalize a lot of this in the 21st century. And I was just reminded by a piece, Jeff Cohen, the founder of Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, who also founded the Park Center for Independent Media, where I'm now director, as well as what we do here at Project Censored. He wrote a piece that is so completely relevant for now, but it's 23 years old. It goes back to 2002, and it was called "What is a Terrorist?" And it says, "Terrorist, one who engages in acts or an act of terrorism." He then goes on to say, "One who leads an armed group that kills civilians as a means of political intimidation. unless he terrorizes Haitians while on the CIA payroll, as did 1990's death squad leader Emmanuel Constant, in which case the U.S. refuses to extradite him to Haiti even after 9/11. It is someone who targets civilian airliners and ships, unless they blow up a Cuban civilian airliner, killing 73 people, and fire at a Polish freighter like Orlando Bosch, in which case he's coddled and paroled by the Bush Justice Department in 1990, and his extradition is blocked. I mean, he goes on and on down the list like this, and I mean, it's dark humor for sure, originally published by Common Dreams, but that goes to the point of what I was just mentioning, is that none of this is even new.
Nope.
And if you remember, John Ashcroft was Attorney General after 9/11, just wantonly rounding up brown people, and acts of violence being committed against anybody, including Sikhs, right? Sikhs, people that have nothing to do with Islam, or people who aren't Muslim. By the way, as if that's some automatic indicator that someone is a terrorist or an evildoer. I mean, tropes upon tropes, ignorance upon ignorance. But they even had like the body count Vietnam style, where Ashcroft was saying, we've now rounded up 700 people, 800 people, like so completely clueless, and then finally, some members of Congress and a few lawyers were like, so what are these people like guilty of? Or where's the evidence that they did anything? Or like, they were like, oh, and
then they just threw them all in Gitmo.
They quietly just stopped reporting about it at all. Because again, here we are. Right. And, Marco Rubio, I think he's Secretary of State. I can't tell how many cabinet positions Musk holds, but I thought Marco Rubio was Secretary of State. And he claimed that this case regarding Mahmoud Khalil, the graduate student at Columbia University who led pro-Palestinian rallies there, among many others, has, of course, been singled out and seized by the state, the Kafkaesque disappearance. And even though, again, green card, in the country legally, married with his wife, is 8 months pregnant, they disappear him, Orwell style. We'll run out of dystopian riffs soon, I guess. And Rubio said that it wasn't a First Amendment rights issue, but legal standing, because he led pro-Palestinian demonstrations. Rubio said, quote, this is not about free speech. This is about people that don't have a right to be in the United States to begin with. Which is just absolutely riveting, that he would say this. A judge has blocked the efforts to deport Khalil, who has not been charged with a crime, by the way.
Well, and just a couple of days ago, on March 11th, it came out that a White House official told the Free Press that the basis for targeting Khalil is being used as a blueprint for investigations against other students. And, quote, Khalil is a threat to the foreign policy and national security interests of the United States. The allegation here is not that he was breaking the law, end quote, said the White House official. It's like, so you're just openly admitting that you're disappearing people, not because they broke the law, but because they disagree with your foreign policy. Like, you are literally admitting that you are disappearing people because they disagree with you.
By the way, President, I just restored free speech, has gone on to say that they're going to continue this. The Department of Education, when they're not busy slashing half the workforce and, I don't know, pulling some other kind of wrestling antics from Secretary McMahon, they're busy sending intimidating letters to 60 colleges around the country, basically, and withholding $400 million from Columbia. They're doing it here in Ithaca at Cornell. They're going after people, and they're using AI to create databases to go after people to deport them. It's like the Soviet Ark and Emma Goldman from 100 years ago, 105 years ago. I mean, again, history repeats itself in the worst ways, I guess. Or as Mark Twain said, if it doesn't repeat itself, it might rhyme. But about that, Will Creeley, who's the legal director for the Foundation of Individual Rights and Dissent, right, a pro-First Amendment group, said, your right to say something depends on what the administration thinks of it, which is not free speech at all. And by the way, let's not forget that the FIRE, this group, they protect academic freedom and free speech across the spectrum, right? Which in my view, I mean, I know some camps like to say, well, they don't like that because they only want to protect speech they agree with. But this is exactly the problem we're seeing right now. It's exactly the problem, which is why groups like FIRE do really good work, is because now they're coming to the defense of of Khalil. They're coming to the defense of these people against the Trump administration, saying this is a textbook case of overreach. It's a textbook case of censorship, disappearance, unlawful detention. And I know that there's people in the crowd that'll say, well, they're allowed to detain anyone they want. That's a real slippery slope. And for anyone to start jumping on that bandwagon and pretending that it's a good idea this time, I've got news for you. There will be a time coming in the future where it will not look good. So that's why you got to be against this stuff before it's happening, during it happening, while it's happening. You need to continue being against it even after this case. If this case is resolved and Khalil is freed and it's rear view mirrored, there's going to be 100 other people that are next.
Absolutely.
And the press really needs to also cover this in a way that is not mealy mouth, not bended knee. We really need to have a vigorous, independent, free press that calls this out for what it is. These are fascist tactics to intimidate whole swaths of the population on a variety of bases, and clearly litmus testing about politics around what's happening with Israel and Palestine.
Absolutely, Mickey. And I think it's also really important, to your point, that independent media not normalize this, because I think that's another thing that I'm seeing is that people will make comparisons to history, which I think is very important, but they'll be like, well, what do you expect from a country that's fascist and its foundings are based on slavery and genocide? And I'm like, yes. And also, you can't normalize it. Just like we shouldn't normalize what Israel is doing in Palestine, in occupied Palestine, because if you normalize it, it becomes like, oh, well, what do you expect? And this is just how life is, which is the antithesis to actually pushing for change, right? If you just accept it, then if you normalize it, there becomes this sort of nihilistic perspective. Well, I can't do anything about it anyway. I might as well just sit back and watch the world burn. So yes, we must contextualize this historically. We have to understand what this country is and what it's been, and that Trump didn't come up with these ideas, of course. But we also can't normalize it, because that suggests that there's nothing that we can do, and we have to demand better from our media and call out the media bias like Prism did in this piece, and that Project Censored does a lot. Call out this extreme bias and this extreme, basically like the lack of legitimate journalism that's at play here when you make people out to be terrorists based on their cultural heritage. And of course, this really speaks to the point of creating terrorists. They're constructed in service of U.S. interests. So people become terrorists when they go against, again, the policy of the United States. And we see this not just with Palestinians, but of course we see this with the forest defenders in Atlanta. Why are they being charged? Why do they have RICO charges that they're dealing with? Well, because they're, quote, enemies of the state. They're going against what the state wants. So we see this across the board, and it's really important to not normalize it, and that media calls it out for what it is.
And one more thing on that same riff, on that same line, one of the things that the corporate media does is they normalize that if one speaks out against Israeli atrocities against civilian populations, somehow one is automatically anti-Semitic. Rather than being a critic of the right wing of the Israeli government, you're just whole cloth anti-Semitic. Meanwhile, you've got neo-Nazi groups and others very sympathetic and supportive of the Trump administration. You've got neo-Nazi members that the U.S. is supporting around the globe in various areas. Elon Musk just, talking about AfD in Germany, the right-wing party there. It's just really incredible. And groups like the alleged Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, they have nothing to say about awkward gestures of right-wing, de facto cabinet members. But yet, if you speak out against genocide, you're somehow anti-Semitic. And the issue is really significant because there are actually anti-Semitic people in the United States and around the world. And in fact, we have a long history of anti-Semitism in the United States. And we can go back long, long ways, but we can just pick a date out of the blue. How about 1866, the rise of the Ku Klux Klan in Tennessee, which wasn't just to round up African Americans post-slavery. It was also anti-Catholic, anti-Jewish and anti-immigrant.
Mhm.
And there was a massive purge against Jews in this country. And in the 1920s, supported by people like Henry Ford and others, you had the Brown Little Bank supporting the rise of Hitler, IBM helping the Germans round up Jews to the death camps. I mean, like, let's not make light. There is a strain of anti-Semitism in this country's history. And to point out the fact that you are pro-Palestinian because you believe that they have rights as human beings to not be slaughtered in an open-air prison, that does not make you pro-Hamas either, right? It's a human rights issue. The corporate media has done a great job of framing, right? Of framing these issues in very jingoistic terms that conveniently push facts and history out of that Overton window. And I
Mhm.
think this is where media literacy comes into play. Certainly the work that Andy Lee Roth and Shaylee Voidal did at Project Censored on the frame checking guide about understanding how media frame issues. You're talking about Prism Reports and what they're now doing around media literacy and looking at media bias. Your excellent piece on news literacy for activisms that's now Reagan Haney and Kate Horgan at Project Censored turned into a great zine you can print out and share with your friends and activist friends and people concerned about First Amendment and free press rights, as well as the rights to protest and the right to know and the right to impart information. These are really important resources that are around media literacy, and these are the kind of things that we promote for free, with the work we do at Project Censored. And it's great to see other independent organizations and especially independent media outlets starting to really understand the importance of media literacy, deconstructing these kind of imperialist narratives, right? I think that that's a step in the right direction. So I like seeing the fusion of media literacy education with independent journalism as a means by which of showing not only the bias of corporate media, but also showing people that there are others out there that are pushing back and that are showing and setting examples for solutions for a better, more inclusive free press system.
Absolutely, Mickey. And just one point on the anti-Semitism thing, I think it's important. First of all, it is it's a distraction, right? To start talking about Palestine and then have somebody say, "Are you anti-Semitic?" It's a distraction. Don't like it is a way to try and shift the conversation
A
into a
red
place that
herring.
it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And secondly, as a Jew, I'm telling you, the greatest threat to Jews worldwide is Israel because they're doing these terroristic acts in the name of Jews. And that is just like what, like the US government is a danger to the world. And therefore, US citizens are at risk because of what the US is doing in the name of its citizenry. It's the same idea. It's just that unlike US citizens, Jews live all over the world. So the biggest threat to Jews is actually the state of Israel. And I wanted to talk about the media aspect that you were talking about and bring it back to something that we've said before. Is this the best that we can do? It's absolutely not. Our media is atrocious. Our corporate media is atrocious. And it's no wonder that the faith in our corporate media systems has dropped the lowest level. It's because people even if they don't have the privilege of the same kind of schooling or the same kind of access to the books that you and I read voraciously, Mickey, there's this part of you that's like, I just feel like this is not right, like that people have these monitors, these BS monitors. And so I think that it's important to recognize that this is not the best we can do. And people are noticing it. Their analysis might be slightly off, but I think this is a really prime and important time for independent media to be like, yes, you've noticed that this is wrong. You've noticed that what corporate media is trying to tell you, trying to manufacture consent, trying to manufacture idiocy. You've noticed that that feels wrong. Well, here is more information. Here are more outlets. And like you've said before, Mickey, we're not trying to say just read one outlet. We want to expand what people read. So read all of the things from very different alternative media sources that have different frames, right? And recognize those frames and recognize whether those media outlets are honest about their framing, right? Or are they trying to hide it behind this fake facade of objectivity?
Yeah.
So I think that's really important, that this is not the best that we can do, and we can do better. We are doing better. And it's important for people to dig past that corporate propaganda to find the people who are doing better.
And there are people doing a great job in the Movement Media Alliance, right? Which is a more recent it's a recent incarnation of something like the Media Consortium from back in the day. And Project Censored is part of this new alliance. And again, it's about fusing critical media literacy and education with awareness of First Amendment rights, and also showing by example what the independent press can do and what independent journalism covers. So check out some of the organizations and news reporters that are, part of this new movement media alliance. Check out the kind of reporting they do. And don't just look at those, like you suggested. There's a whole world of other independent sources doing a lot of great things. There was recently a piece in Jacobin that was bemoaning how there was not some great left media response to Tucker Carlson or what have you. And, while that's understandable on some point, given we live in a capitalist system and left progressive media doesn't always attract, that kind of capital. And if it does, it's sus. Um, right. But there's this other idea too. And it's like, the piece kind of overlooked that there's just hundreds of outlets and people that have been doing this for years. At Project Censored, we've been cataloging great, intrepid, public interest, independent journalism the corporate media ignore for 49 years. The Izzy Awards at the Park Center is in its 17th year, highlighting amazing people and organizations doing stalwart journalism, like muckrakers of the day of old, like I.F. Stone and others. We are here. We are out here. So rather than bemoaning that we're not here or wishing for something, we need to collectively get together and help amplify each other's signals more than ever. This is not a competition. This is a time where we all have to be working together in this way to amplify this against the great juggernaut and propaganda machines of the state and corporate media.
Amen, Mickey. This is if we want to build a better world, then we have to work together, and we can't be the individualistic Marlboro man that we've been taught and programmed to be.
Oh, darn.
But in your free time, Mickey, thank you so much for taking the time to do this segment with me. I think it's great to have these times where the co-hosts hang out together and talk about the news that didn't make the news and why. So, Mickey, thanks so much. And everyone, thank you so much for listening to the Project Censored Show. You can find a lot of what we were talking about just now over at projectcensored.org for free, by the way, just like this show. So please check that out, and we'll see you next time on the Project Censored Radio Show.
Thanks, Eleanor.
Right.